You're standing in a grocery store, holding a banana. You're about to give someone a piece of paper with dead presidents on it in exchange for this yellow curved thing that will rot in 3 days. Wait, what the heck is going on here? Why does this make sense to literally everyone on the planet? Welcome to the world of commerce, where humans have figured out the most elaborate ways to trade stuff with each other, and somehow convinced everyone that little green papers are worth something. Let's go back in time, way back, like before TikTok existed. Actually, before money existed too. Let's meet Grog. Grog has too many rocks but really wants some berries. Meet Ugg. Ugg has way too many berries but desperately needs rocks. Hey Ugg, says Grog, want to trade? And the first business transaction in human history. This is called bartering, and it's basically commerce's awkward teenage phase. But here's the problem with bartering. What if Grog wants berries, but Ugg doesn't want rocks? What if Ugg wants fish, and the fish guy wants feathers, and the feather guy wants rocks? Suddenly, you're playing the world's most frustrating game of telephone with stuff instead of words. So some genius thousands of years ago said, what if we all agree this shiny metal thing is worth something? And everyone was like, sure, why not? And that's how money was born. Now, instead of carrying around 17 chickens to buy a cow, you could just carry around some coins. Much more convenient and significantly less clucking. This little invention changed everything. Now you didn't need to find someone who wanted exactly what you had. You could sell your stuff for money, then use that money to buy other stuff. It's like having a universal trading card that everyone accepts. Money became what economists call a medium of exchange. And let me tell you, it was about as revolutionary as inventing the wheel, except you could put the wheel in your pocket. But wait, there's more. Money also became a store of value, meaning you could save it for later instead of watching your berries rot. And it became a unit of account, which is just a fancy way of saying now we can compare how much different things are worth. 3 chickens equal 1 goat? Cool, now we can do math about it. Fast forward a bit, and humans start getting really creative with this whole commerce thing. Someone figured out that instead of everyone making everything they need themselves, maybe Bob should focus on making shoes, Alice should focus on making bread, and Charlie should focus on making, I don't know, whatever Charlie's good at. This is called specialization, and it's basically why you're not currently living in a cave making your own clothes out of animal skins. The thing is, specialization creates something economists get really excited about called comparative advantage. Even if Alice is better than Bob at making both bread and shoes, if Alice is way better at bread and only slightly better at shoes, it makes sense for Alice to focus on bread and trade with Bob for shoes. It's like if you're amazing at both math and juggling, but you're a math genius and only pretty good at juggling, you'd probably focus on the math career and watch YouTube videos for juggling entertainment. Now, all these people specializing in different things need to find each other and trade, which creates something called markets. Markets are basically organized chaos where buyers and sellers get together and figure out what stuff should cost. It's like a giant negotiation party, except instead of arguing about what movie to watch, everyone's arguing about the price of turnips. Here's where things get interesting. Prices aren't just random numbers someone pulled out of a hat. They're determined by this beautiful dance between supply and demand. If everyone wants something and there's not much of it, the price goes up. If there's tons of something and nobody wants it, the price goes down. It's like musical chairs, but with money. Supply is pretty straightforward. It's how much of something is available. If there's a drought and farmers can't grow as many apples, supply goes down. If some genius invents a super efficient apple growing machine, supply goes up. Simple enough. Demand is trickier because it depends on what people want, and people are weird. Sometimes demand makes perfect sense. When it's hot outside, more people want ice cream. Sometimes demand makes no sense at all. Remember when everyone went crazy buying toilet paper in 2020? Yeah, that happened. The point where supply and demand meet is called equilibrium, and it's where the magic happens. It's like that perfect moment when you're haggling at a flea market and you both agree on a price, except it happens automatically across entire economies. Pretty neat, right? But hold on, there's a plot twist. Sometimes markets don't work perfectly. Shocking, I know. Sometimes there are what economists call market failures. Maybe there's only one company selling something, so they can charge whatever they want. That's called a monopoly. Maybe the person selling something knows way more about it than the person buying it. That's called information asymmetry, and it's why you should probably get a mechanic to check that used car before you buy it. Sometimes the cost of making something affects people who aren't even part of the transaction, like when a factory pollutes the air. These are called externalities, and they're basically the economic equivalent of your neighbor playing loud music at 3 a.m. It affects you, but you didn't agree to it. This is where governments sometimes step in and say, hey, maybe we should have some rules about this. They might break up monopolies, require companies to share information, or make them pay for the pollution they create. It's like having a referee in a basketball game. Most of the time, the players can figure it out themselves, but sometimes you need someone to blow a whistle. Speaking of rules, let's talk about the framework that makes all this commerce possible. You need property rights. Basically, the ability to own stuff and keep other people from taking it. Without property rights, why would anyone bother making anything if someone could just walk up and steal it? You also need contracts, agreements about who's going to do what, when, and for how much. And you need some way to enforce these contracts, because apparently not everyone keeps their promises. Who would have thought? You also need something called the rule of law, which means the rules apply to everyone equally. If the king can just take your stuff whenever he feels like it, you're probably not going to be very motivated to start a business. This is why countries with strong legal systems tend to have more commerce and be generally wealthier than countries where the rules change depending on who your cousin is. Now let's zoom out and look at the big picture. All this individual trading and specializing creates what we call an economy. An economy is basically all the commercial activity in a place, whether that's a town, a country, or the whole world. It's like a giant, constantly moving puzzle where millions of people are making decisions about what to buy, what to sell, what to make, and what to do with their time. Economists measure economies using something called gross domestic product, or GDP, which is basically the total value of all the stuff produced in a place during a year. It's not a perfect measure. It doesn't account for things like happiness or environmental damage, but it's a pretty good way to compare how much commercial activity is happening in different places. Economies grow when people get better at making things, when they invent new technologies, when they get more education, or when they find better ways to organize themselves. It's like leveling up in a video game, except instead of getting better at fighting dragons, everyone gets better at making stuff people want. But sometimes economies don't grow smoothly. Sometimes they go through boom and bust cycles, where everything's great for a while, then suddenly everything's terrible. Then it gets better again. It's like riding a roller coaster designed by someone who failed physics class. These cycles happen because economies are made up of millions of people making decisions based on incomplete information and emotions, and sometimes everyone gets excited or panicked at the same time. During booms, everyone's optimistic, spending money, starting businesses, and hiring people. During busts, everyone gets scared, stops spending, businesses close, and people lose jobs. It's like a giant mood swing, except it affects entire countries. Governments try to smooth out these cycles using fiscal policy, that's government spending and taxes, and central banks use monetary policy, that's controlling the money supply and interest rates. It's like trying to steer a massive ship using a tiny rudder while wearing a blindfold. But hey, sometimes it works. Now let's talk about something that makes commerce even more interesting: international trade. Turns out, different places are good at making different things. Maybe one country has great soil for growing coffee, another has lots of oil, and another has really good engineers. So they trade with each other, and everyone ends up better off than if they tried to make everything themselves. This creates something called globalization, where products, services, money, and ideas flow around the world faster than you can say supply chain. That banana you're holding? It might have been grown in Ecuador, shipped through Panama, and distributed by a company headquartered in Cincinnati. It's like the ultimate collaboration project, except instead of working on a school presentation, the whole world is working together to get you fruit. But globalization also creates some challenges. When a factory in one country can make things cheaper than a factory in another country, the expensive factory might close down and people lose jobs. When economies are connected, problems in one place can spread to other places really quickly, like how a financial crisis that started with mortgages in America somehow affected banks in Iceland. It's the economic version of dominoes, except the dominoes are countries. Speaking of financial crises, let's talk about the role of finance in commerce. Finance is basically the plumbing of the economy. It moves money from people who have it to people who need it. Banks take deposits from savers and lend money to borrowers. Stock markets allow companies to raise money by selling pieces of themselves to investors. Bond markets let governments and companies borrow money from anyone willing to lend it. This financial system makes commerce possible on a scale that would be impossible otherwise. Want to start a restaurant but don't have enough money? Get a loan. Want to expand your business but need more cash? Sell some stock. Want to buy a house but don't have a few $100,000 lying around? Get a mortgage. It's like having a really complicated system of IOUs that somehow actually works most of the time. But finance can also create problems. When banks lend money to people who can't pay it back, or when people speculate on things they don't understand, or when everyone gets too optimistic about how much something is worth, you can end up with bubbles and crashes. It's like playing Jenga with the entire economy. Most of the time it's fine, but sometimes someone pulls out the wrong block and everything falls down. Throughout all of this, technology keeps changing how commerce works. The printing press made it easier to share information about prices and products. The telegraph made it possible to coordinate trade across long distances instantly. The internet made it possible for anyone to sell anything to anyone anywhere. Each new technology creates new opportunities for commerce, but also disrupts existing ways of doing things. Right now, we're seeing commerce transformed by things like e-commerce, digital payments, artificial intelligence, and cryptocurrencies. Some of these will probably stick around and change everything, and some will probably turn out to be expensive mistakes. It's like watching the future happen in real time, except nobody knows exactly what the future is going to look like. The really amazing thing about commerce is that it's basically humanity's way of cooperating on a massive scale without needing a central coordinator. Nobody's in charge of making sure there's enough food in grocery stores, or the right number of cars get made, or that there are enough accountants but not too many. It all happens through millions of individual decisions, guided by prices and the invisible hand of self-interest. Adam Smith, the guy who basically invented economics, called this the invisible hand. The idea that when everyone acts in their own self-interest, it somehow leads to outcomes that are good for society as a whole. It's like a giant, distributed problem-solving machine made out of human behavior. Of course, this system isn't perfect. It can create inequality, where some people end up with a lot and others don't have enough. It can be unstable with those boom and bust cycles. It can damage the environment when the costs of pollution aren't included in prices. And it can be unfair when some people start with advantages that others don't have. But despite all its flaws, commerce has lifted more people out of poverty, created more opportunities, and generated more innovation than any other system humans have tried. It's turned us from small groups of hunter-gatherers barely surviving into a global civilization where you can order pretty much anything you want and have it delivered to your door in 2 days. So the next time you're standing in that grocery store, holding that banana, remember that you're participating in one of humanity's greatest achievements. You're part of a system that connects farmers in tropical countries with consumers in your hometown, that coordinates the actions of millions of people without anyone being in charge, and that somehow makes it profitable for someone to grow a piece of fruit on one side of the world and sell it to you for less than $1 on the other side. That's commerce. It's complicated, it's messy, it's sometimes unfair, but it's also kind of miraculous. And now you know why that piece of paper with dead presidents on it is worth a banana. Now, if you learned something from this chaotic journey through the world of commerce, maybe hit that subscribe button. It's basically a transaction where you give me engagement and I give you more educational content. See? Commerce is everywhere.